Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm Sean David. Let's talk some old school basketball. Having an old school YouTube NBA channel, of course, sometimes I gotta be honest and admit that I'm a little bit biased when it comes to comparing former NBA players to today players. But that has also a lot to do with, hey, I was a witness of the golden age of NBA basketball. Having said that, in this video, I want to take one of my favorite players, Larry Bird, and show you guys why I feel that he would still dominate in today's NBA. But before we start with this video, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also click on the notifications button so you always get notified when I upload a new video. And I would say, let's get right into this stuff.
LeBron's physical, if not athletic ability is a gift. Larry's IQ and basketball competitiveness is, uncanny. Like Larry's ability to make tough shots, his shooting, his IQ is just, man, come on, man.
So, how am I going to approach this? Well, there are some major categories like scoring, defensively, and all this kind of stuff, which I want to take a look at Larry Bird's capability and see if he would still match up in today's game. Okay, I want to start off by addressing the elephant in the room and also the reason why most younger folks don't think that Larry Bird could match up in today's game. Let's be honest, today's game is way faster, and of course the average player today can still jump out of the building, which you can't compare with the 80s and the 90s, okay? Even I as an old school fan have to admit to that. But even in the 80s you had the more athletic guys and some guys who weren't athletic at all but still were very good basketball players. Even a Magic Johnson is not the most athletic guy in the world, but still we're talking today about the best point guard of all time. And a more recent example is Dirk Nowitzki. Even the younger Dirk Nowitzki was never athletic, but still that guy could score. Why? Because he figured a way out how to be productive without being athletic. So if somebody wants to tell me that Larry Bird couldn't be productive in today's game because he's not athletic, sorry, but not a chance. Some of the greatest players of all time have not been really athletic. Paul Pierce, John Stockton, Magic Johnson, and even some of the great players of today like Steph Curry and Chris Paul aren't the most athletic guys in the world. They're way more important things to the game than being athletic, even in today's game. And the next category, which is scoring, basically goes hand in hand with the first one. So how can Larry Bird, who was not fast, can't run, can't jump, is going to score in today's game? Well, he was the slowest guy back in the 80s, and he was still able to score. Why? Because that guy was versatile and a very smart player. Plus, he had a go-to move. Now you look at Luka Doncic and you say, wow, that guy can score because he has that great step back. Well, Larry Bird was doing that in the 80s. You have to remember that guy was 6'9", had a very high release, and could literally shoot over everybody. Plus, if you take a closer look to his game, that guy had so many moves he was just impossible to figure out. And he was the master of making difficult shots. Now let me tell you what would make Larry Bird unstoppable and unguardable in today's game and even stand out in today's game. You have to remember, back in the days, not many bigs were shooting the threes. Larry Bird is a 6'9" guy who was shooting around 40% in most of his seasons. Of course, in today's game, that is nothing special. But how many big players do we have that can shoot a three, have a really good post game, and be one of the best passers in the NBA? Exactly, and that makes him unguardable. If you give him too much room, he will shoot right in your face. If you guard him close, he will take you to the post and rip you apart. And if you are a good defender and try to make life miserable for him, he will always find the open man. And that worked back in the 80s, and believe me, that will still work in today's game. Next on my list, I have the clutch in his gene, and no matter if it's the 70s, the 80s, or today, that is something that not many players have. Back in the days, you had guys like Michael Jordan, Reggie Miller, and so on, and in today's game, of course, we got a Damian Lillard, we got a Kawhi Leonard, and a handful of other guys who can make shots when the game's on the line. But Larry Bird was the master of making the shot when the game mattered, and having that quality today would make him a valuable asset to any team.
9 seconds to go. This is it. You can count it down with me. Bird inbounds. It comes to Maxwell. Max puts it on the floor. We're down to 6. Bird in the corner. Double fake. Jumper. Score! Larry Bird hits it with 2 seconds left. Listen to the crowd.
He wasn't out to play basketball for the money. He was out there to step up and win and look in your eyes and say to you, you can't beat me.
They clear it out a bit for John. Larry tries to fight his way through with Barkley all over him. They're not going to call a foul. Goes to Bird. He's open. Got it at the buzzer. Oh!
had unshakable confidence. If he could get his shot off, he felt like we was going to win the ball game.
2-point Maverick lead.
Bird's the man they want to have it. Yes, indeed.
Bird for three. Yes! Larry Bird for three. Celtics lead it by one. What can you say about Larry Bird?
The next category is also a very important one. Hustle. I mean, let's be honest. How many NBA superstars you see, especially in nowadays NBA, who hustle for every loose ball? And Larry Bird was doing that even in his 30s, in his mid-30s. When his back was hurting and that guy could hardly walk, that guy was hustling for every loose ball. And this is something that you have to understand. There are certain qualities that are bigger than the era. No matter if it's the 50s, the 60s, or even until today, a great hustle player is always valuable to your team. And having your superstar also being the most hustling guy on your team, man, that was crazy. I mean, let's be honest. How many of today's superstars are considered to be great hustle players? Case closed.
Drives in. Random. Look at that. Harris drops it. Bird stepped on the line. It's Philadelphia ball, but that's... Look at that. And that's with a 30-point lead, folks, with 4:05 remaining in the third.
And the next category on my list is toughness. So let's start with the mental toughness. Larry Bird is known to be the best trash talker in NBA history. Why? Because he could actually back it up. You can talk to any NBA legend from the 80s and the 90s, they will all confirm Larry Bird would tell you what he would do, and he would do it. I mean, how crazy was that?
When a guy is literally coming up the court, calling his shots, and, you know, Bird talked a lot of trash.
And that's in New Orleans.
That's in New Orleans. In that game, we're on the free throw line, and he literally says, left side over across the three, and you're listening to him. That's a tough feeling.
And of course, then there's the physical toughness. I mean, back in the days, guys couldn't sit out. You had to play your 82 games, and if you didn't play, you were seriously injured. I mean, having that mentality in today's game, sacrificing your body and understand the obligation to give it 100% every single night, that quality simply goes a long way. The next category has to be one of my favorite ones. It's the passing. I think Larry Bird was one of the most underrated passers in NBA history simply because that guy was amazing when it came to passing. To me, actually, he was almost as good as Magic Johnson. That guy has that so-called passing gift. Back in the days, and even until today, it's not so common that tall players actually have a good court vision, but Larry Bird literally could see the floor so well, always seeing the open man and create for his teammates.
Just try to figure out the angles in the game. You know, I was very fortunate. I was brought up under great coaching at a young age, how to put yourself in the court where you're in triple threat position all the time and always know where you're at on the court, even if you're not looking at the basket. So it's been great for me to learn under some of the greatest coaches that you could ever have in high school. And as I went along, all I did was just try to get better and better, learn the fundamentals, and throw my own little kick to it.
Look at that pass.
The one thing I did have, Kevin, I had a vision to sort of understand what my teammate was going to do on pick and rolls, whether he's going to dive to the basket, where he wanted the ball.
Bird, beautiful pass to Ford.
I picked that stuff up early in high school. I could figure out my teammates pretty well.
Bird, slap pass to Archibald. Bird on the cut.
And the last two categories that I have on my list is defense and basketball IQ. I already mentioned earlier that Larry Bird was never the fastest guy, nor was he the most athletic guy. But this is exactly where the basketball IQ comes in. You don't have to be the fastest guy to be a good defender. You don't have to jump the highest to be a good defender. If you know how to position yourself, have a good communication on defense, there are ways how to defend even faster guys. And back in the days, Larry Bird had to guard some of the best players of all time, and he was capable of doing that. And there's a very interesting story from Isaiah Thomas, which confirms how smart Larry Bird was defensively.
I'll never forget, everything just started, it went in slow motion. Jess Kersey is standing there, I'm looking at him, and we froze, we celebrating, and Jess Kersey starts to count, because he's standing there and he has the one count. So I run over, we look at the bench, no timeout, nothing. So I run over and I grab the ball, and this is probably one of the most incredible plays that's ever happened against me and that probably I've ever witnessed. From an athletic standpoint, two people being in sync and Bird just playing every second. And that's what the Celtics taught us, to play every second, not to play 47 and a half minutes, but to play a full 48. So I grabbed the ball from the referee. Lambier's a good foul shooter. I never had taken the ball out. That wasn't my thing, right? I throw it up. Bird sneaks in. I didn't even see him. But the thing I remember the most is that joker. This is the out of bounds line. That joker caught the ball, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, he going out of bounds. That dude did this, like a ballerina, right? And if you go back and you watch the play, that dude is on his toes. The baseline is right up under his toes. And in my mind, he must have stood there for about 5 seconds because everything was going in slow motion in my mind, right? And it's like, I'm like, and then it's a strange moment. I'm like, damn, how you doing that? And then DJ, out of nowhere, right?
Right.
They are so in tune. They are so in sync. He catches Bird hits him. He catches the basketball, lay it up.
Now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ, lays it in. Right at 1 second left. What a play by Bird.
All right, to conclude, how will Larry Bird do in today's NBA? And I know this is going to rub you young cats the wrong way, but I feel that Larry Bird still will be the best player in the NBA. Even with Kevin Durant and all those guys, that guy was a unique talent. And if I would have to put it in numbers, I think he would still average about 28 points per game, still get his 8 to 10 rebounds, still average 6 to 7 assists, and he would still stand out in today's game simply because of his high basketball IQ.
I didn't play the game for the money. I didn't play the game to be famous.
Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will have to retire.
With the first pick in the 1992 NBA draft, the Orlando Magic selects Shaquille O'Neal from Louisiana State University.
Gary played for the lob ahead to Kemp. He went airborne, defied gravity. Laid it down with 2 hands, baby.
We had a superstar.
Hand-checking start, goes baseline. An NBA Finals record.
The 1990s were the golden age of NBA basketball and still have countless fans even until today. Hey everyone, I'm Sean David of NBA Got Game TV and the Basketball Time Machine. In this documentary, we want to take you guys back deep into the 1990s and relive the NBA at its best. If you follow my show, The Basketball Time Machine, on a regular basis, then you probably know that I had quite a few NBA stars on that show. But for this documentary, I'm really excited I got even bigger names to agree to be part of this. Just to give you some information what we're going to cover in this documentary, of course we're going to cover the Chicago Bulls, the Orlando Magic with young Penny Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal, the Charlotte Hornets with Muggsy Bogues, Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson, the Los Angeles Lakers Reborn with Shaquille O'Neal, Nick Van Exel, Kobe Bryant, the European Invasion with Tony Kukoc, Drazen Petrovic and those guys, the Houston Rockets with Hakeem Olajuwon, Sean Kemp, and many behind-the-scenes stuff you probably never heard of. We try to cover a lot of stuff that you haven't seen before. Our team is really committed to this project. From my 2 NBA shows, I know that there are hundreds of thousands of fans just like us who would love to be on that nostalgic ride, but without support, we won't get this project off the ground. So we launched this Kickstarter campaign and hope you guys will support this project so we can get it done. If you can't support this documentary financially, no problem, but please help us spread the word on social media. Thanks in advance, take care, and goodbye. Hey you guys, if you're active on Facebook, I can really recommend Open Court. As an NBA fan, you should find everything you need. If it's funny NBA videos, impressive highlights, or even NBA news, I check out Open Court every day.